Welcome back, and we are off to Chapter 6. In this chapter, I'm going to discuss the key points of Section 1401 of the Act, but I'm not going to go into particular subsections just yet. I want to start everyone off with a basic background of what this section is all about. That's because this section is incredibly convoluted and hard to understand as it's written. But the basic key features of this Act are, number one, it provides a mechanism for a credit for assistance in purchasing your insurance through a state exchange. These are being referenced as the subsidies. Number two, the credit is determined on the basis of your adjusted gross income, or AGI, how many are being covered in a family, and the poverty levels that are in place. Number three, in order to qualify for a credit, you cannot exceed an adjusted gross income over 400% of the then current poverty level that is in place. Number four, how the poverty level is determined by. And number five, how subsidy amounts are based off of the silver/moderate plan premiums in place, which basically means if you pick a higher rated plan, you're still only going to receive a credit based on the silver moderate level based plan. So basically how these state exchanges are going to work is there's going to be bronze levels of insurance coverage, silver, gold, I believe there's even a platinum, and then within each one of those categories there's going to be levels as well. Like bronze might have a level A, B, and C, and then your coverage will be based off of those things that are contained within each specific category. Now, what is key to figuring out what your subsidy or your credit amount is going to be is your adjusted gross income and poverty level. For example, if in 2013 your adjusted gross income, or again AGI, is $89,000 for a family of three, you are way over the 400% of the poverty level. In fact, currently, if you are a family of three, you can't make more than $76,360 in order to qualify for any subsidy. This means you pay for your entire insurance on your own, since you are deemed to be able to afford it. Good news though, as I covered in Chapter 5 of this series, if your premiums exceed 8% or more of your AGI, you can opt out of the Act and therefore not incur a penalty. But now, of course, you have no insurance either. However, remember that the more money you make, thus increasing your AGI, the more play there's going to be in determining the cost of your premiums. Again, if we use an AGI of $89,000 and your state exchange has a bronze level lowest coverage premium amount that is $7,000 annual, this means it falls under your 8% and you have to purchase it, regardless of how crappy the coverage may be or be subject to the penalties. By the way, $7,000 breaks down to about $583 a month. Now, I don't know about you, but I really don't have an extra car payment plus some laying around a month to go towards a crappy insurance plan at the coverage level of the bottom of the barrel. Of course, the government is quick to point out that if you already have employer health insurance coverage, you're going to be able to keep it. Now, this might be true for now, as long as your employer continues to offer it, and I'm going to go into more detail about that particular subject later on in the series. Now, this section also has a lot of other implications based on your own personal situation, but I believe the above situation is the one that most of us really need to be concerned with. I would strongly recommend that every one of us takes out our most recent tax return, look at what your AGI was, and determine how you fall on the poverty scale to figure out what subsidy you may or may not qualify for. Now, in order to do that, you're going to have to look up what the then current poverty levels are. And that's an easy enough thing to do in your search engine on your computer. Just look up 2012 poverty levels, and you'll get a whole bunch of different things that you can bring up. You want one that is backed by the federal government, in other words, the ones that they use. And you'll see it's based off of how many are in your family, and then it shows you what that level is. Now, personally, I think there's going to be many middle-class American families who are adversely affected by this. Meaning once you all do the math for yourselves, there's going to be a lot of us who can't qualify for a subsidy, and thereby we have to pay for the entire cost of the exchange insurance ourselves, especially if we don't have employers who are going to continue with health insurance or have any health insurance to begin with. Now, for those of you out there that argue, hey, you make enough money, I beg to differ. Just because my adjusted gross income is that amount doesn't actually mean I have that money in a bank somewhere that I can draw upon whenever I want to pay for things. Again, let's take in consideration that 89,000 number that I've been using. First of all, federal taxes, we all have to pay them every year. So right off the bat, that's $7,000 to $8,000 that's gone. Next, the cost of living. My mortgages, car payments, insurance for cars and homes and other ancillary items like utilities, food. And what about those retirement savings we're supposed to be putting away and college education costs? How about our state and local taxes? I don't know about where you folks live, but it seems like we are getting nickeled and dimed every time we turn around. And then there's the everyday items we need. Clothes and shoes and tools for work. Now, when you take all of that in consideration, even on a good month, most families are not setting aside more than $100 or $200 for which they can put into an emergency account. And that is a far cry off from the $500 a month for health insurance coverage for, the bottom of the barrel. And now let's take a look at credit card debt and other debt that many of us have incurred over the last 5 years because of the awful state of our economy. And I don't think it's getting much better. And sure, maybe if I stop being responsible in terms of saving for my retirement or my kids' college education, or how about I just stop making my house payments, then maybe I could afford the health insurance. But then what are we really saving for in the end, and what are we teaching everyone about being responsible? Aren't we constantly being told by the government the importance of saving for your retirement since Social Security is on its way out? And then the fact that we really have to start saving for our children's college education the minute they are born into this world, what with the rising costs of education? This is the biggest problem with this mandate. Had the mandate been figured out on actual costs of living that middle-class Americans have, the percentage of the poverty levels would have been much higher than 400%. Personally, after I've done my own calculations, to be fair, I believe the subsidies should not have been phased out until reaching above 800% of the poverty level. This would have been far more realistic for middle-class American families who do not have an income level beyond $150,000. Again, that may seem like a pretty fantastic amount, anywhere from 90 to 150, but again, when you take in consideration all of the responsibilities that go with that debt and the mortgages and the car payments and whatnot, there's really not as much as you think that's left over. Now, remember when Obama was originally put into office, how he pledged that no middle-class American families making under $250,000 would be negatively impacted by taxes? I remember that pledge well. Well, the Supreme Court just made his penalty under this act an actual tax. And if you can't make more than $76,360 for a family of 3 adjusted gross income, that family is going to be negatively impacted by taxes, and they made under $250,000. Thereby, President Obama just broke his promise. And he's breaking his promise to a lot of middle-class Americans. Thank you for listening. I really urge each and every one of you to do your research to figure out how your numbers are going to work for you, because it's the honest to goodness truth. Anything else I may have to say with regards to this series, you can take for opinion until you've done your own research, but the math is the math. Thank you for listening.